Good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy. This is Loving My Veteran, and we are walking in my shoes this morning. We're going to talk about communication. The title of the series is What We Have Here is a Failure to Communicate. Communication is key, and we're going to talk about that as we go forward. So let me get a minute. Everybody grab your coffee, kind of get comfortable, let people get on, and we'll get started. A lot of good things going on here. Newsletter will come out today. I did not get it out yesterday. I am sorry. So if you have not subscribed, it's www.lovingmyveteran.com. This is PTSD Awareness Month. Some great things in the newsletter that's going to kind of lead us into next week's topic as well. It's going to have to do with verbal and emotional abuse. So you need to pay It's a tough topic to discuss, but we want to discuss it, and there's some information in the newsletter about it. So if you've not signed up for that, please do so. I know that we're on a new platform, and it's kind of hard for people to get used to, so I've put this on our Facebook page as well, so everybody can come on, and I'll share it back there again. So today's topic is communication, and it is tone, and it is verbiage. If you can say the same thing over and over and over again, and using a different tone will make it play different in somebody's head. That's why I'm not a big fan of text messages, right? Because somebody could text you something simply like, get over here. Okay, well, are they just like, hey, come on, where you at? You gonna get over here? Or are they like, get over here now? You don't know what is being said in a text message because it depends on your mood. It depends on their mood. It depends on so many things. How are you when you're into a conversation? What did they mean by it? What played out? Did they just get in a fight with somebody else and now they're reading your text? So your tone, which we have no tone in a text message, is left completely up to the reader to determine how that text message is sent. So when you're communicating verbally, your tone, your body language, and your mannerisms can play a massive role in what goes on. It can be a massive difference in what goes on. So if I look at somebody like Carl and I'm like, hey, baby, I love you, right? Normal tone, knows I love him, got it. It's words. But we could do something ridiculous or stupid or just make a mistake. You know, and I'm not talking about like bad thing. I'm like, yeah, I really love you right now. How does that play out? It's not the same meaning. So your tone is important, that you understand the tone you're delivering your message in. It is taken differently. What all is going on? I know that for me, and Carl will vouch for this, when I get a lot going on and a lot on my plate, I get very snippy, as Carl puts it. Snippy is his word he likes to use. I get very snippy. And it's not that I mean to be short with him. And it's not that I mean to say anything to him. It is simply that I'm in a hurry, or I have things going on, or I'm doing something, and I'll be like, did you do this? Do you do that? And it just becomes snippy and short. Instead of nicely communicating, clearly communicating, or I'll say something like, hey, can you do this for me? Yep. Okay, well, if I don't put a time frame and I expected it done yesterday and he hasn't done it in the time frame because I really expected it done or needed it done yesterday, then I get an attitude, right? And that attitude carries into the rest of the day. And we find that we do that by our tone. It would be so much easier for me to turn to him and say, "Hon, we have all this to do. Will you please do this?" and give him the stuff I need done, instead of, "I need you to do this, handle this, do this." It becomes demeaning and you don't realize it. You don't realize that it becomes demeaning when you're doing this, and it becomes so demeaning when you say, "Hey, do this, handle this, take care of this. Did you do this?" It becomes so, like, as Carl puts it, "I'll be a good little puppy. Sit, stay." And I do that, and I don't think about it. And it's not because I want to demean him. It's because it's the tone I'm using, because I have a lot going on, and I don't think about how it affects him. So it becomes very demeaning, and you don't realize it. And so you try really hard not to do that, but you're not realizing that you're doing that. And so your tone portrays a big difference. He will do anything I ask within reason. Well, probably anything I ask, but anything I ask within reason. But when I deliver it in this snippy little, in a hurry, I don't have time for you, bitch mode, how do you think it's coming back? How do you think he's interpreting it? How do you think he's picking up on what I'm saying? You know, that's one of the harder things to do. Hold on, I'm saying if I can do this stuff. And y'all, I can't see chat. So if y'all are commenting, if somebody has not made a comment, if you will just make one, I'll see if I can see it, because I'm trying to learn this platform too. And we may have to go a different way. But anyway, so that's one of the things that I learned, was that I just turn into like this little bitch mode, and it's really ugly. And it's not something that, what is it saying? Okay, I don't know what I'm seeing over here. I've just made myself all the ridiculous. Well, we're going on. I'll learn this a little better as we keep going. So I do that. I turn into like this bitch mode because I get snippy with him. And another thing is the way I approach him. Not only is it my tone, it is the body language. It is the positioning. It is the way I approach him. If I come at him and he's sitting or standing or whatever, and I come at him with this walk, like I'm going to just like kick the world's tail today, and I look at him and I go, "Hey," immediately he becomes defensive. Okay, immediately he becomes defensive. If he does it to me, immediately I become defensive. Nobody wants to be this way. Nobody wants that to happen. We don't want to see or feel that we're threatened. And so we do this, and we get in this bitch mode, and the way we approach people, and our tone and our body language and the way we approach them totally changes the reaction we're going to get back. It totally changes the reaction we're going to get back. I don't want to be yelled at. Do y'all want to be yelled at? Nobody wants to be yelled at. None of us want to be yelled at. None of us want to be screamed at. So if I'm bitchy and I'm crabby and I'm in a hurry and I'm snippy and he says something and I turn around and I go, "What?" It changes his whole mindset. Whole mindset changes. Just because I said "what" like that, the whole mindset changes. It's instant. And we cannot keep, when we do this, what do you think happens? I get this "what" attitude. His mindset changes because now I'm snippy, and now he thinks, like he said something and it wasn't valuable to me, even though I may have been busy, when it would have been so much easier to have said, "Honey, hang on a minute. Let me finish doing what I'm doing, and then we can talk." Or, "Hold on." And if I would have just changed the tone from "what," "Honey, can you hang on a second?" Where do you see the difference? One is a very threatening tone, and the other one isn't. So how do you think it comes across? How do you think it comes across on these threatening tone versus non-threatening tone? That's what happens. And when you use that tone, you totally set the mood in a different way in your environment, in a totally different environment. So when we start with this attitude and then we don't understand why we're getting the attitude back, it doesn't matter who starts the attitude. Now we have one, and it's all about tone. Whereas, very simply, if I would have said, hang on a minute, or even if he would have been the one who said, what to me, if I could have just taken a deep breath and not gotten my panties wadded or my feelings hurt and say, I need to ask you something, but obviously you're busy. Can we talk about it in a minute? If we would have done that, the tone and the day and the mood would be so much better throughout the whole day. But when you start that and you start to posture yourself, because humans, animals, everything in existence always goes into self-protect mode. So we try to protect our own feelings. And if we feel threatened by posture, by verbiage, by whatever, we become defensive by nature, because that's what we do. And it changes the whole mindset. The whole mindset. You know, so it is so important that when we understand how we're approaching people, that tone matters. A lot of people ask me, and I've seen it a lot, and it's been asked a lot. How do you start? We don't communicate at all. Every time I try to bring something up and tell them what they're doing wrong, we end up in an argument. How do you start? Okay, this is hard to swallow. It was hard for me. It's hard for everybody to swallow. It's hard for them to swallow. Y'all, just in case you don't know, I did a lot wrong. Okay, so I'm saying that on video, babe. This is the episode of you went out. This is the episode you need to record. I did a lot wrong. How do you start? I was convinced early on that everything that went wrong in our relationship was PTSD related and was all because of him. That everything that went wrong in our relationship was all PTSD related and was because of him. Everything. So I didn't like where things were going. We were going to change that. I made a list. Y'all know I'm big about lists. And my list was going to be sit down and go, you do this and you do this wrong and you do this wrong and you do that wrong. And I don't like it when you do this. And you're not going to talk to me this way. And you need to get over this. And you need to. If you talk to them that way, how much do you think they're going to feel attacked? And by nature, we protect ourselves. That's a by nature thing. So when you are going to somebody and you say, you've done this wrong and you've done this wrong and you've done this wrong and you've done this and you doing it, what do you think is happening in this situation? They're getting defensive. They get defensive, they shut down, and then the conversation twists and turns and deflects towards what you do wrong. And now all of a sudden, you were going with the list of what they did wrong, and now all of a sudden they're telling you everything you do wrong. So now you're pissed, you feel worthless, nothing's gotten accomplished, and we're arguing instead of making progress forward. So how do you do it? You start small, first of all. You have to remember, you can't control anybody's statements. You can't control anybody's actions. All you can control is how you react to them. Okay? So when you're addressing some of these issues, let's say, for example, and I hear it a lot, my veteran won't help me around the house. They sit there and they watch TV and they do this and they do this and they do this and they do this, or they won't help me around the house. And I've got all this stuff and I'm at work and I come home and there's all this stuff to do. And he's now playing a video game and not even thinking about dinner. And he or she does nothing and I'm doing it all. How many times do we hear it? We hear it all the time. So how do you approach that? How do you approach that positively? How do you approach that where you're not going to end up in the middle of World War III? Small, clear, concise, and not assigning blame. When it would be so much easier, and it takes practice and it takes time, and you are not going to get the answer you want every single time, nor are you going to get it immediately, but it will come. And then they start to come in more rapid sequencing. So it'd be so much easier to sit down and say, "Hun, when you come home, he may be playing his game or whatever. Sit down, be in their presence. Make them, you, together, us, feel important. 5 minutes of us, for Carl and I, 5 minutes of us time is very important, and it will totally change our mindset. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. But if you sit down and kind of engage in where they are for a minute and then say, "Hey, will you please do this? There's a lot that needs to be done today. And if you can take care of this, that would be wonderful." One thing. Now you start the communication. And if it needs to be done by a certain time frame, make sure that you do that. Now tell me how much different the reaction would be if you stood at the door of wherever he's playing the game and you said, "Can you get off your effing game and help me? I have so much to do around here." Which one do you think you're going to get the better results from? Because what if it was flipped around? Sorry. What if you were the one spoken to that way? If you stood at the door and said, "Get off that effing game. I need help around here," versus 5 minutes in their presence, and you don't even have to say anything. You understand that walking into a room and being present with somebody is important to them. You don't have to interrupt what they're doing, but being present with them is important to them. Even if you watch their game or watch what they're watching on TV. I do still watch Transformers on occasion. But even if you're doing that, you now have become engaged in their world. You are now important. They are now important to you. Even if you're going to distract and ask for something else. And this is not just true of our veteran. This is true of everybody. Okay. So when you start that and then you say specifically, "I need help with this. Will you please do this? And I'm fixing dinner right now. Will you please, I don't know, help with dinner or put the dishes away or watch the kid," or whatever it is. But be specific. The mindset that they have will be so much different than being attacked, because the same would happen for us. Again, remember, sit, be a good little puppy, sit with the whole what do you want? What do you need? Sit down. I don't have time right now. Sit down, stay. Same thing happens when you walk in that room and you do that. It becomes demeaning. And we don't realize that we're doing it because our frustrations are already so high because we see things that need to be done and they don't, or they may or may not. and we don't get the help. And then where are we? Well, guess what happens on the reverse side? How many times do they attempt to help or do something, and we go in and tell them they've done it wrong? How many times do we say, and I think about this with my kids. I used to tell my kids, you guys need to make your beds. All right. Well, if I could get the sheets and the blankets on top of the bed semi-straight, that was making their bed. If I went into them from day one and said, that's not the proper way to make your bed, what do you think was going to happen? Discouraging. They wouldn't do it, whatever. Now they made their bed. And then as they were making it, I went in later and said, look, can we pull these sheets out? We need to get these wrinkles out first and then put this. And you know what happened? My kids learned to make their bed. But they learned it in a positive manner. Instead of them making their bed and me going into them and saying, you did it all wrong because you didn't do it the way I would do it. What were my kids supposed to feel? Like they couldn't do it right. So why bother? How many times do we do that to our veterans? How many times do we do that to employees if you're their supervisor? How many times do we do that to our friends? How many times do we do that to business relationships? Nobody is going to do it exactly like you do it. So if you go in with this attitude of, hey, I need you to do this, and then they don't do it to your expectation, they've done it. If you want clear expectations, give them. So where I'm going with this is your attitude and your tone sets the pace for the rest of the conversation. Also, remember we talked about rights at some point. If you go in and they're doing something and you say, hey, look, I need your help. I really need this done now. Can you? And they're doing something, even if it is playing a game that they believe is important to them, they might say, can I finish this and I'll do it then? Okay. Can I finish this and I'll do it then? They have a right not to drop everything they're doing and jump and move on your demand. That is a tough pill to swallow. Tough pill to swallow. It is hard to swallow that. But that is the truth. People don't have to jump on your demand. But when you change the way you speak to people and your tone and your attitude and your sense of opening, remember, again, let's talk about the room. They're playing their game. And you're standing at the doorway. I can see this. I've done this. Arms crossed, or stick my hand up on the door and stick my head in and say, can you? And my neck goes like a chicken. Okay. That's probably why Carl loves Houdini, because I got that same little chicken neck thing going on. I need you. I ought to have whiplash because I do it. So I did it a lot more now than I do. I need you, and you get this going on. Or you need to. Right? Now we have the whole whip puppy syndrome. But if you walked in and was present and said, and it was communication, and if they said no to you when you were standing at the doorway with your head bobbing and the screaming, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get pissed and you're going to slam out of there, because I do it all the time. I'll just take care of it myself. All right. So now what have we done? I was overwhelmed. I demanded that you stop. I talked to you like a 2-year-old. You didn't respond the way I wanted. I said I'd take care of it myself. I stormed off. And now where did the tone of the day go?
Down the toilet.
Down the toilet. Not that anything I asked was wrong. Not that anything I said was wrong. but it was the delivery that made it wrong. And when we learn to change our delivery, everything will change. And their delivery back to us changes as well. Is it going to happen overnight? No. Because one thing I've learned about veterans in general is they are non-trusting and they want you to show me. Okay? I am completely backwards. Like if somebody says, oh, I can do this for you, I just trust them completely. Okay, great. You can handle this. Come on, do this for me. This is great. And 9 times out of 10, won't say that. More often than not, I get proven wrong. And Carl just sits back and says, told you. Didn't I say that 6 months ago? Didn't I say that 8 weeks ago? Didn't I say that? But I am completely backwards. I'm like, come on, everybody jump on the bandwagon. I got you. I trust you. You say you're going to do something. You say you're going to do this. You're going to do this. This is going to happen. Come on board. Oh, we're going to change our attitude. Everything's going to change. Great. Happened at work. I can't tell you how many times, instead of putting, as my boss used to say, you need to start putting pen to paper and you need to stop talking to these people and start writing it down. And I promise you they'll change. Well, I didn't. I always gave people the benefit of the doubt. Well, he had a bad day, or the dog died, or somebody stole his lunch money, whatever it was. I'm completely trusting. Carl is completely the opposite. He doesn't trust and show me your actions. Okay, so I can sit here and say, babe, look, I read this today or this happened today. And so let me tell you, I'm going to totally change the way I talk to you. This is the new me. And he's going to look at me and he's going to get this grin that he has like, he rolls his eyes through his mouth because he gets this weird grin. And it is as much to say, yeah, right. We'll see how long that lasts because he knows me. But you can talk it. You have to show it. And once you start showing that your attitude and your delivery changes, they will become trusting that this is really what you're trying to achieve as the norm. Are you always going to do it? No. But this is what you're trying to achieve as the norm. And when you try to achieve this as the norm, they're going to see it. They're going to be open to it. And whether you want to believe this or not, they will start to turn their own tide without having to be told. Because they react. Every human reacts. There's an action and there's a reaction. So if our action becomes demeaning, and we do it a lot out of frustration, if our action becomes demeaning, if our action becomes threatening in nature, if the tone we use starts out being frustrated and angry, it's going to set the mood and everything will then follow. So that is really important when you're learning effective communication. No, it does not happen overnight. And there are days we don't. Yesterday was like the non-communicate day. We were just nowhere on the same piece of paper until much later in the evening. And we knew it. I mean, both of us just kind of looked at each other and I was like, I'm sorry I'm being this. And he's like, I'm sorry I was being snippy. I mean, we knew that nothing we said was effective. And some days you're just going to know that. Some days there are just days that it's not effective. And you have to be able to take that break and step out of yourself and say, God, is this you over here talking to me? You have to be able to say, I'm doing this wrong. Let me back up, punt, and start again. And if you know you're in that mood or that place, find something that will get you out of it. Whether it is a shower, whether read a book, whether it is breathe deep, whether it's do 5 minutes of yoga. The other night, and it's kind of funny because I needed space. Okay, I needed space. There's nothing he did. I just needed space. Well, like Carl has got this attraction to a yellow fly, or the yellow flies are attracted to him. We have yellow flies here. And if you want like a yellow fly trap, just set Carl out and they will bite him and he can kill them and you'll get rid of every yellow fly in the yard and they won't bite you because they'll bite him. So I went out back and I sat out back on the porch swing and I'm sitting out there, got music on. It is absolutely beautiful. And I'm just getting my head together. And I was, are you coming? He said, no, the yellow flies will eat me. And they would have. And I needed that space. So even if you need that reset of your head, take it. It's okay. Because we can't always all be this way. You can't always be, I'm not going to be pissed off. You can't always be, I'm not going to have an attitude. You can't always be, I'm going to feel not discouraged. You can't always be this. Shit happens. And it does change your mood. And there's going to be days you're going to go backwards. And that's okay. But I promise you, when you learn the right verbiage and the right tone, it will make a difference in absolutely every part of your relationship. Because without communicating, you can't set boundaries. You can set them till hell freezes over. But if you don't have a way to communicate that boundary, what good does that do? That's like putting the dog out, and I'm not a fan of shot collars, okay? But people use them effectively all the time. But, when you put the shot collar on your dog and you got the underground fence and you don't put the little flags up so the dog knows that the shot collar range is there and it just keeps running past it and there's no communication, you don't tell the dog no, you don't tell whatever, and they just keep going and they're getting shocked over and over again and it's cruel. If we can't communicate our boundaries, it's as cruel. People cannot read our minds, and then they don't understand why we're pissed, and then they don't understand why the relationship falls apart, and then we don't understand when we're in this situation. We're there because we can't communicate. You can't set up a boundary that you don't communicate that boundary. And you can't set a boundary if you can't communicate. Because if you go in there and stand at the door and say, look, I'm done, and here's my boundaries, and you're yelling them, they have shut down, they're over, you're not communicating. That's the way it works. So that is what we are on failure to communicate. You will realize quickly that most of your relationship problems are just that. They're not all PTSD based, but most of the problems are based on communication. And I'm talking about all the way on down to body language. And we're going to really talk about body language tomorrow because I had no idea that my body language set the tone as well. Your body language can be worse and get a way worse result than your words. Your body language can really play a role in your communication. So we're going to wrap this up today. Tomorrow on Wednesdays, we will obviously be here Wednesday morning. Hopefully we'll get the comments part straightened out. I'll figure that out today, but we'll get that done on Wednesday morning. 10 o'clock, Behind the Service Podcast is Coffee Conversation Collaboration. That link is on our Facebook page and on our group. I always put it up on Wednesday mornings. Stephanie does Wellness Wednesdays on Wednesday at 6:30. And we're going to give a big shout out to Team Shane and Stephanie. He is happily where he's supposed to be at Shepherd's, and they have said we could share this, so I am. Team Stephanie and Shane, they are rocking it at Shepherd's, working on the TBI stuff, and they'll be letting us know how things are going, which I'm really excited for. This is our community. You guys are our family. I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. Y'all have a blessed day, and I will see you tomorrow.